This episode of The Breakfast Dish is brought to you by Alberta Association of Optometrists, proudly celebrating a century of caring for Albertans. It happens. Many people don't call their optometrists first for urgent eye care when they need it. From spring cleaning mishaps to winter eye infections, if you or your family have an eye emergency, doctors of optometry are trained to diagnose, treat, and prescribe medications. No referral necessary. And just a reminder, Alberta health coverage is available towards your urgent eye care appointment. To find an optometrist in your area, visit optometrists.ab.ca. The Alberta Association of Optometrists represents almost 800 doctors of optometry in over 80 communities across the province. Members are highly trained, regulated health professionals who provide primary eye health and vision care to Albertans. Learn more at optometrists.ab.ca.
Tell me your dreams over bacon and eggs. We'll share a laugh and a story and even a wish on the breakfast dish. Bop, 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 bop.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 48 of The Breakfast Dish. I'm looking at the screen, at the face of my son, who always has this look on his face of dubious doubt about whether or not my introduction will be worthwhile to our podcast, The Breakfast Dish, and whether or not his choice to do a podcast with his mother was a good life choice or not.
I feel as though if I'm doubting the choice, episode 48 is like a long time to see if this next one is going to work out.
But I'm unpredictable. You never know when I'm just going to make you regret your life choices.
Well, again, sometimes I have an idea for the bit that comes up in this banter, like the weird Frenchman I did last time, or I don't. So my look is basically, wow, I hope Karen can carry this one. Also, in some of your intros, you make me sound like a cigar-smoking, like, podcast magnate. Like, is this going to be worth my time?
You are. You are. Look at that big stogie you have right now. Is that what it's called?
Stogie. I think so. Stogie?
I almost said hoagie, but that's a sandwich from
is different.
7-Eleven in my youth.
Imagine a cigar the size of a hoagie. You'd be dead, I think.
There
you'd die
you go.
For real.
That's what our podcast is about, asking you to imagine cigars the size of Subway sandwiches.
Well, we've mentioned every other kind of drug on this podcast, so we might as well circle back to the semi-safe ones.
Hey, Griffin Cork, my son, my offspring, my child, what is this podcast about?
Hey, so we started The Breakfast Dish to talk to people who are figuring out ways to do some kind of art in this kind of crazy world. And slowly the world is becoming less and less crazy, but it still has an excellent percentage of craziness, be it online or digital or socially distant. People are making it work. And, it is somewhat easier to make things work, but there is still a process somewhat. And, yeah, that's where we're at. That's where we're doing. That's what the business is. Welcome to episode 48 of The Breakfast Dish. You know what you're doing here.
Did you actually mention that it's about, like, art?
Yeah.
I know you said, people are doing things, but have we mentioned that it's an art podcast?
I think I said art towards the beginning. But listen, if you didn't like my intro, you can do one too. And go.
Okay. The Breakfast Dish is a podcast where we talk about all the theater or dance or visual art or music or literary arts or improv
26 minutes later
that are happening in and around Alberta, social distanced or live. And today's guest is offering something live.
And that wasn't French. Who knows what that was?
L-E-V-E. That's what that is. Did I say that right? L-E-V-E?
I don't know who you're conferring with on this chat, but I certainly don't know.
Okay, let's ask our guest, Kelly Reay, Artistic Director of New West Theatre in Lethbridge, if I spelt live in French right. Kelly Reay, did I?
I'm with Griffin. I'm going to take a pass, plead the fifth here. And even my daughter's been judiciously studying French over the last year, so I should know. But summer holidays, my brain's turned off. Dad brain is off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bad at English over summer, so yeah, French would surpass me.
I'm pulling that French alphabet out of my 18-year-old head, which is nearly 40 years ago. I think I'm right. L-E-V. It's the V I'm not sure about.
I think you're right. Karen.
Yay! Je suis correctamundo.
Well, I'm not an authority, so
interesting.
I'm sure you'll get a million angry tweets.
Sounds like you ruined it with correctamundo. I don't know what part of Montreal you find that.
Hey, Kelly Reay, how are you?
Hello, Karen. I'm great. Thanks for having me on this morning. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, it's a treat. I was just saying to Kelly, having not seen him in 18 months or more. I don't know. When did you move to Lethbridge from Calgary?
It's been 3 years.
I can't believe that. Well, you look 30 years younger than when you left Calgary. So moving south, Lethbridge is good for your skin, let me tell you.
Yes, it's all the dry air and the cactuses and the rattlesnakes.
And the wind, like the wind will just blow all the age off of you, right?
I'll go with that.
All the age stink.
I love Lethbridge. It's such a welcoming small town that's like no other city everywhere. Anyway, you're I was going to say new, but you're not the new. How long have you, and are you artistic director or artistic producer?
I'm artistic director is my title, and I'm new-ish. It's weird because I officially was hired for the position. So I started with the company's general manager, served as GM for a year, and then all sorts of things changed with previous AD retiring, and one thing led to another, and I got offered the position, which is awesome and exciting, but then a pandemic hit. So, I had all these grand plans and these great things that we were hoping to do, and then, of course, like the rest of the world, we had to change gears. And so I feel like, even though I've been in the position a year and a half, I feel like I'm still brand new because, haven't been able to sort of done any of the programming that we were really looking to do. Haven't been able to really, put the fingerprints on the company yet. But, that's what the next couple of years is going to be.
We've talked to more than one artistic director who came into their role just before or after the pandemic started. And I have a question. You tell me if I'm wrong. I would think it would be daunting to take over a company with a history like New West. Like, it is Lethbridge loves their New West. So to come in as a new artistic director and try to give them what they've always loved or whatever, is it kind of a bonus to have 18 months to create your own plan, your own world, and sort of rebirth the thing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's been tons of time over the last year and a half for reflection, for planning, for figuring things out. I mean, it is a very unique company. This will be our 32nd year now, or we're just starting the 32nd year of operations, and it's built, been very popular for all those years, and kind of accepted with open arms by the people who live in Lethbridge. And one thing that I learned really early in my tenure with the company is, it's not my job necessarily to come in and change things just for the sake of change or throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there is, that real core, that real nucleus of the work that the audience loves. And that's, a little more mainstream, golden oldies kind of work. But there's an audience for that here, and they pay their hard-earned money to see that work, and shows are well attended. The audience base is significant. So, those are gifts. I really, coming from my background in Calgary, as you both know, from like indie theater, a lot of indie theater, and a lot of, if we got 40 people in the audience, that's awesome. Going to, having regularly sold out houses of 400 plus. It's pretty incredible to have that opportunity and that resource of a dedicated audience.
Maybe this is a crazy question, because you were kind of touching on it here. Is how coming in as a new artistic director, did you find a process in terms of considering the history of the company and the shows that perform well and the audience base in a good mix of, kind of like you said, putting your own fingerprints now on the company as like one of the incoming leaders, like mixing the two, kind of, like respecting where you came from, but also seeing what you can do?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, there's a magic formula in there somewhere, and we're still kind of figuring that out. As I said before, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You want to preserve that thing that has got the company to where it's gotten, but at the same time, we have to look to the future and have to look to an aging audience. We have to look to, renewal of audience. We have a university full of young people across the river from the theater. There's significant and major opportunity for growth in getting foothold with that university audience, which I think we've only scratched the surface of. So that's one of the big things that I'm kind of focusing on, is looking to the future, preserving what makes a company New West Theatre, but looking to the future and what other new types of things can we do, and how do you do those things in a way that is feasible in a sense, because you don't want to spend $200,000 on a show that's a gigantic risk that 100 people come to see. So it's all those things, trying to figure out how to take those risks, how to open up and expand the programming in a way that preserves what's made the company unique and allows us to grow. So it's a real delicate balance.
Right.
And then you haven't had the ability to take any risks over stay away from each other times.
Different kinds of risks for sure, but not those artistic risks that we're kind of hoping for.
So the reason we wanted to have you on the podcast is because New West Theatre is offering Arts in the Parks. And I may or may not be a huge Kathy Zaborski fan, but she is kicking the thing off.
She's headlining.
Did she already headline it? Did it start on the weekend?
No, it starts on this upcoming weekend, July 10th.
Okay, so if you're listening to this episode on July the 12th, there's other times that Kathy appears in the schedule, gosh darn it, and you want to be there for them.
How much outside programming has New West done beforehand, or is this like somewhat of a new endeavor? Like, is there anything to kind of go off of, or is this like, hey, restrictions are down, let's get some outside stuff happening now?
Well, in a lot of ways, in so many ways, this is brand new for the company. I know going back many years before my time, there was some outdoor performances, but I think not a lot. And certainly at this juncture, this feels like a brand new initiative. So we're like, I think our team, we say to ourselves every day, we're making this up as we go along. There's no mold, no precedent for this type of series in Lethbridge anyways. So we're forging some brave new territory, I think. Can I tell you guys a little bit about how the series came about?
I was just about to ask.
Great. So it goes back in the winter. We kind of we're forecasting, it doesn't look like COVID's going to get a lot better. So we're looking, okay, we're going to do outdoor programming. We made those decisions. Last summer, we did a big outdoor drive-in performance down at Exhibition Park, where we set up a stage in the middle of a concrete parking lot, and people came and parked, and it went really well. Like, it kind of exceeded all of our expectations. And so just a number of things, but within that format, there were a lot of limitations as well. So we wanted to change it up a bit, and we decided to do outdoor park programming. And so just by good circumstance and I suppose a bit of serendipity, the City of Lethbridge at that same time were looking to, they knew they couldn't do Canada Day in the traditional sense. And so they had this budget. Normally they do like a big outdoor celebration with fireworks and live performance and musicians and all that kind of thing. So they took that budget and they hired New West Theatre to create and produce this Arts in the Park series. And so that really how it came about.
That's great.
Yeah. And then, of course, when we first started planning, we were anticipating that we'd still be under full COVID lockdown and we'd have to do all sorts of on-site safety measures and not restrictions, but just safety guidelines, which of course have now loosened a whole bunch because we have no restrictions anymore.
Which, just hearing those words is so freaky to me.
It seems crazy.
It is. And we're sort of, our mantra has kind of been around all this COVID stuff is just because we can do something doesn't necessarily mean we should do something. So
thank you.
Yeah. So there will be, at our events, we're going to do what we can to have mechanisms for social distancing, for safety, for those people who still choose to follow those things. For example, we'll have on the field, like these are all in the park, so we'll have little seating bubbles where you can sit with your families that are 6 feet away from the next seating bubble, and so folks who still want to observe precaution can sit in those bubbles.
That's great. That's what I think is going to help people. What am I trying to say here? Even someone like my mom, who's a rabid theater goer, is very tentative about going back. She's gone to see one or two things in person in Edmonton that there could be 7 people in the audience because that's how big the theater was. They had masks and social distancing and she felt super safe, but she's still not ready to go jump into a 700-seat theater crammed in with a bunch of people. But this sort of initiative is an ease back into that feeling of community. And this sounds to me like a summer-long Fringe meets folk festival.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah, it's, with maybe a little bit of high-performance rodeo sprinkled in there.
Ooh.
Tell us about the high-performance rodeo parts.
Yeah, wait a minute. What?
Well, I think maybe more in spirit than anything super tangible.
If you're listening and you don't know what that is, it's off center. What's the word I want? It's not off the wall. It's so diverse. There's such a diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know, because I spent 2 years working with high performance rodeo, so I take a lot of it.
You describe it then. Do it better than me, so Griffin can cut out what I just said.
Sorry.
Seriously.
I spent 2 years working with high performance rodeo, and one of the things that I really sort of took away, I mean, I learned so much during my time there, but I really appreciated the spirit of openness and the spirit of the collaborative spirit, the braveness to take risks on work that other people won't take risks on, or that just seems too weird or too out of the ordinary. And certainly, you won't see the same types of risks at our series, but I think that spirit of programming things and finding homes for little niche performances or unusual off-the-wall types of performances that normally wouldn't have a home in Lethbridge. We found some homes for those smaller micro performances at Arts in the Parks.
Having an outside festival, like having an outside performance series, is kind of what you would do in summer without restrictions. Like that's the draw of summer, right? Is to be able to be outside for long periods of time and enjoy the weather. So in a kind of weird way, even though it is kind of negotiated by these restrictions and guidelines, it is kind of the perfect way to transition into a new normalcy in a weird, because it feels like it's the gatherings of, it's not like you have to go out and do an outside performance in March, right? Like figuring out how to watch something in July, it goes, right, and now it's September and now it's time to go inside, like is what it usually would be. I think it's a great way to do.
Tiptoe across the grass to the parking lot, to the doors, and go inside.
Little mouse steps. That's right.
Yeah.
Where do I go? Please, sir.
And in so many ways, because of what you just said, Griffin, it has been incredibly simple to produce. Like there's so many moving pieces. So that part's, of course, a little more complex. But the simplicity of, okay, we put artists on a stage, we put people in the field to watch, we turn up the sound, and there you go. Because it's a non-ticketed event. It's we have incredible support from the City of Lethbridge. We have access to resources that we normally wouldn't have access to, and yeah, it's pretty simple to put up art in the park.
And we've talked about a little bit how great Kathy Zaborski is, but do you want to talk a little bit about the rest of the programming?
No, it's just Kathy. It's
right.
It's just Kathy.
And that's the end of the podcast. Bye, everybody. This actually the outro music this time. We've actually paid Kathy $7,000 to write us a new outro song. So thanks, everybody.
No, I'm looking at the schedule right now, and there's so many things I'm excited about. So yes, Kathy. And what else, Kelly?
Well, of course, Kathy. She's amazingly talented and a lovely person to boot. But, it's hard to, that old cliche, they're all like children and we don't want to single out any one of them. But I mean, it is one of the things that was important to this series is that it was all entirely local artists, like Lethbridge-based artists. And it became really clear when we opened the submission process that there was so many talented artists who choose to make their home in Lethbridge, which I think for a city Lethbridge size, so close to a major city like Calgary and even Edmonton, that's not always the case. There are a lot of folks who work and live here. And there's so many highlights. Bands like Hippodrome, which is a 12-piece funk band in Lethbridge. We have I think nearly a quarter of all of our acts are Indigenous acts, which I think is we're really grateful to be able to share the stage. And, for better or for worse down here, there's not always a lot of crossover with Indigenous artists and non-Indigenous artists. New West Theatre, we're doing our own show in this series. We're creating a show that goes up August 14th and 15th. There are a plethora. Is that a word, a plethora?
Yeah,
Am I
you're
using it in
good.
the right context?
Yep, but I never know if it's plethora or plethora.
Right.
I don't think it's plethora. Plethora sounds like a disease.
Plethora. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Devons. You have plethora. Please inform your next of kin.
But yeah, no, there's a plethora, a whole bunch of like really interesting duos or solo artists who maybe necessarily wouldn't be featured on a big main stage performance, but they have a 10 or 15 minute set of experimental stuff they've been working on that we can plug them in. The Lethbridge Shakespeare Performance Society is producing a Midsummer Night's Dream. Hootenanny, an outdoor play for the whole family, is a play created by Nicola Elson and Julia Wasilewski, two Calgary expats who now work at the University of Lethbridge, and they've created an annual play for kids. So we're going to feature that in the series. Andrew Legg is a local actor and musician who's doing a one-man show in the series. So there's all sorts of things, and really one of the goals was also to have a little bit of something for everybody, no matter what your tastes are, to have, maybe today's not your day, but next weekend, look at these great acts. Come on down to the parks.
Well, coincidentally, we are recording this on July the 7th, and it is Andrew Legg's birthday.
Whoa.
So let's all just wish a happy birthday to Andrew Legg.
Happy birthday, Andrew.
Looking at this schedule, I didn't know there was such a thing as the Little Lethbridge Opera Company.
Prior to this whole thing, I didn't know about Little Lethbridge Opera Company either. So it's, getting to know all these great acts and these great companies as well.
And the band formerly known as Karen, Lewis, and Pam. I have no idea who or what that is, but I want to go see them.
They're a band that they perform children's tunes. And last summer, they were known as Karen, Lewis, and Pam, but they got a cease and desist order from Sharon, Lewis, and Bram. And now they are the band formerly known as Karen, Lewis, and Pam.
That's amazing.
How can you do that?
I know.
That's not fair. They're absolutely not saying the same three names.
We're going to come down on you with a legal hurricane.
Sharon, skinnamarink-dink, Sharon, come on.
That's right. That's actually how Karen scolded me as I was growing up. Griffin, skinnamarink-dink. I'm going to give you a cease and desist.
I have to give you a skinnamarink-dink story. My mom sang that song to me growing up all the time. I loved that song. And until I was, 21, and I don't even know how long Sharon, Lois, and Bram have been around, but I watched them on TV singing it. And I'm like, Mom, how do they know your song? She's like, no, I didn't make that song. And it was like finding out that there's no right? Like it was that. I just realized that you have a daughter who might listen to this at some point.
My daughter might listen, yes.
There isn't? What the hell are you talking about?
But the feeling I had when I realized that my mom had not written and created Skinnamarink-a-Dink broke my heart. Why can't, what do you call it? Mimicry be the highest form of flattery. Why wouldn't you want...
Listen, we got to stop talking about Skinnamarink-a-Dink. We're giving too much promo to this very litigious band all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But wait a second. Did they write it? That's the thing. I don't know that they wrote it.
I couldn't tell you.
We're going to do a little research. Griffin will put that in the podcast notes. The origin of Skinnamarink-a-Dink-a-Dink, Skinnamarink-a-Doo, I love you.
That's right. Yep. And if it's not there, don't worry. It's coming. Just keep checking back. And if you don't see it, something's wrong with your computer. I did it for sure.
I had my very first ever metal band experience, ever going to see what I considered a metal band in Lethbridge at maybe the Slice. I think, with Kyle Greninger's band that I've lost the name of. In Cura. I was taken to the bar by, I can't remember, people that were in the cast of the show I was working on.
Do you know any of these nouns you're saying?
No, nothing. I know no information about the story I'm telling you right now. I think it was the cast and crew of For the Pleasure of Seeing Her Again that said, we're all going to go see our friend Kyle. And I'd never seen a metal band in person before. And I was like, whatever I was, 45 and I remember, I'm so embarrassed about this. I remember walking up to Kyle and going, you know what? I enjoyed that because I could understand the words.
Did you put on that Atlantic accent?
I was from Fargo. Listen, Kyle, I just wanted to say I
Loved
think
all your guitar whammies.
your trash metal was just on point because I understood.
Trash metal. Your slash metal, death metal, horror.
Anyway, Kyle has this amazing band. He's an incredible singer. I've seen him do New West shows. And then he went off and did the We Will Rock You tour across Canada and played at Madison Square Gardens or something.
Yeah.
So now he's back in Lethbridge and you have the opportunity to go see him August 7th at 3:30 in Legacy Park. You can see the Kyle Gruninger.
That's right, solo. He's playing a solo show, and what I understand, it's kind of a new endeavor for Kyle. He's trying out some of his old tunes in a little different fashion and just doing a bit of experimenting. So there you go.
Here's something else I didn't know about. August 21st at 4 o'clock in Nicholas Sharon Park. The Southern Alberta Trombone Collective.
Whoa.
Eleanor Holt, wherever you are, I hope you're going to Lethbridge on that day because she plays trombone.
Does she really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she plays trombone. Yep.
Well, Eleanor, if you need a place to stay, you can crash at our house and come dig the Trombone Collective.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Eleanor's B&B Search podcast. My name's Tevin O'Brien, and man, we're looking at this new place, and God, this bowl of fruit that they have placed on their Airbnb photos. Gosh, it's a real humdinger up here. Kelly, are you directing the show that New West is creating?
Singing in the sun?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's. I hesitate because it's the show's more. It'll be a show that we draw from past material on.
Right. So
I'll sort of supervise this sort of assembly of the show, but it's more of a greatest hits kind of show for New West Theatre.
And would you say that's? Oh wait, no, you already said we're not choosing darlings. Never mind. Ignore this question.
Oh no, come on. Who's your favorite kid?
Well, of course I'm excited about that show. Yeah. I mean, those are the New West Theatre ensemble artists. That's obviously my company that I work for. So yeah, there's something a little exciting about that for sure. And I think for our audience as well, because as I was alluding to earlier, the audience here loves that work. And so we wanted to give them some of that too.
And those past works, I'm going to use the term that I've heard used in Lethbridge. Graham Rennick used to describe them as the shaky shows.
Yeah.
But in a great way, like if you want to see big pop numbers or musical theater numbers mixed with some excellent sketch comedy, then you want those shows. And they've been going for, like you said, 30 odd years or something. And with some super favorites like the Erica Hunts and the Scott Carpenters, et cetera, they are a huge hit.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all I have to say about that, everybody.
They're good. They're
just
very good.
Just trust me. Singing in the Sun will be good. The end.
Thank you for the plug.
So, what's the next risk you're thinking of taking, or can you tell us?
Oh yeah. What's your grand plan?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you some of the things, like, some of the ideas we have in the cooker. I mean, we've been a company that's built, made its bread and butter on music performances, but has done very little musicals in the past. There have been a handful of musicals, like most recently the company did $1 Million Quartet to a huge success, at the highest selling show in company history.
Whoa.
I bet.
And so it really just showed us that, okay, there's an appetite for this here. So now it's like, what types of musicals can we do? You can do like the traditional, the popular musicals, but there's so many other great musicals out there that are a little off the beaten path. So, how can we push the musical genre? Also, and this is probably 3, 5, 7 years away, but I'm super interested in producing new musicals or, creating new musicals. Or working with, maybe there's co-pro opportunities with companies across Western Canada to workshop music, that sort of thing. But outside of that too, one of the big focuses that we have, I guess at all levels of our company, but is that focus of broader cultural representation on our stage and behind the scenes. So we're working on some of those opportunities to feature Indigenous voices, to tell Indigenous stories, and then beyond that, really interested in doing excellent plays. I mean, that sounds redundant, but the company has historically had a Canadian series, which Karen, I know you've been a part of a number of times. And so we want to take that, but we want to broaden that to not just limit it to Canadian plays, because there's so many great contemporary or not so contemporary plays out there that haven't touched our stages that I think the audience would eat up. So, it's not about like getting edgier or taking risk for risk's sake, but it's about growing the company and creating a wider or a larger audience for a wide range of offerings. And I think that's kind of where growth is going to take place over the next 3, 5, 10 years.
One of my favorite things about working there was that my old first drama professor from Red Deer College, Richard O'Brien, now resides in Lethbridge with his wife, Judy. And he came to see all the shows that I did at New West. And it was like, I don't know, like the feeling I had was, see, look what I made it, Dad. Like it was this really strange feeling. Here's the other thing. When you're 20 and you're just coming into college and all your professors, like they're the professors at the post-secondary institute where you are in college, and they're all old. Like in your mind, they're all old. So Richard O'Brien comes to see the shows I do at New West, and I'm like, you don't look any different. Like he's 70 something now, which means he was in his early 40s when he was teaching me. But in my head, he was always like this 60-year-old.
I've come to give you a quest.
Release your anal sphincter.
What if there's Lethbridge folks who just listened to this episode and haven't listened to the other 46 episodes, and you said release your anal sphincter without context?
Well, that's what Richard O'Brien,
everybody in Lethbridge, I'm so
used
sorry,
to tell me in theater school.
This episode of The Breakfast Dish is brought to you by Rumi, like a roommate, Mom.
I wish you were still my roomie.
Cold drafts?
Yep.
Flickering lights? And
yes.
Where's that leak coming from?
Me forgetting to turn the sink off.
I see. If you ever wonder what's really going on in your home, like it sounds like Karen might be, Rumi's Ask a Home Inspector service can help. You have to call. You have to call. It really sounds like I'm really worried about you. Connect with a certified professional home inspector by phone or video call and get your question answers video call.
Thank you so much. It's a new normal.
Rumi will let you know what's easily fixable with a little DIY, or when you might need to call in some professional help.
Like me.
Visit Rumi.ca. That's Rumi, RUMI.ca, and book your Ask a Home Inspector appointment today.
Something's on fire.
What? All right, let's get into some brass tacks. Kelly, when does the event start? Has it started? How long does it go until? There's no admission, but where do people go to find out more information about it?
Sure. Well, it starts July 10th, which I believe by the time the listeners listen to this, it will be in the past.
You're already late. Get on it.
The great news is every single weekend in Lethbridge, there will be an event all the way through to September 11th.
That's so many events.
Yeah, it's 10 events in total, and at different parks across the city, and each event generally runs 1 to 5, 1 to 6-ish. So it's really relatively informal. You can come drop in, stay for the whole thing, or stay for an hour. There will be food trucks. There will be lots of friends to visit. Some of the events have beer gardens. It was really we wanted to create a community happening. So July 10th to September 11th. Free for everyone, appropriate for everyone, so please bring families.
I'm just going to put a plug in here for my cousins, Holly and George, who go see the New West shows. Just saying, now that you're retired, this is where you want to be spending your summers.
I see. I thought you were going to put in a plug to the general public for our family members. Gotta go check out their new renovations, drive by their place. Gosh, their dogs are real great.
Everyone should know my cousins. However, they're always very happy when somebody tells them about stuff going on in Lethbridge because they don't work in the arts. So anyway, Holly, George, get out there.
Please.
Holly, George, thanks for listening, but you do have a job to go do.
I love it. It's micro audience development.
Yes, it is. One at a time. Well, they have kids. Emily, Becky, get out there.
Perfect.
And speaking of parental units, I am here to tell you that The Breakfast Dish is part of the Alberta Podcast Network, kind of like our mom and dad, locally grown, community supported. The intro music you just heard and the outro music you're about to hear is by Alexandra Cowman. All graphic design for The Breakfast Dish has been done by Morgan Ermter. Karen, what's coming up?
I want to specifically highlight Hootenanny, which is happening as part of Arts in the Park. It's a 14-day run of a risky yet rewarding adventure of Pearl and Dot. Performances are Wednesday through Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and 1 p.m., July 7th to the 31st. It's happening at the Rotary Square outside of Casa or across the street from Galt Gardens Fountains. Here's a little blurb. Pearl and Dot are neighbors who both spend their time alone, dreaming of adventure and the companionship of a dog. Little do they know that these dogs will bring them together in a globe-trotting adventure, flying planes, sailing ships, and climbing mountains. Featuring wild comedy, zany characters, puppets, music, and so much more. It's a 35-minute show, and you can also see it at Nicholas Sharon Park on July 24th as part of Arts in the Parks. Holly, George,
you have to listen to all of our episodes. I just realized while we're plugging things, you should listen to the rest of the podcast episodes, or else the cousins aren't invited. To what? I don't know.
Holly, George, there's this great band that used to be called Karen, Lewis, and Pam.
The band formerly known as Karen, Lewis, and Pam.
Yeah, please. There's a lawyer at my door. Kelly, thank you very much for joining us on The Breakfast Dish.
My pleasure. Thanks to both of you for having me.
How we usually like to wrap things up here on The Breakfast Dish is that Karen will ask you a question that we did not plan, we did not talk about. It might have something to do with what we just talked about, but maybe not. But she's an improviser, so here we go. 3, 2, 1.
So you're sitting in the Coolies in Lethbridge and you're having your 2 hard-boiled eggs and toast. How are you managing to keep those on your plate and the wind is not blowing them off your plate while you're trying to eat them for breakfast?
What?
You don't.
What is that? Yeah.
You don't, Karen. You don't. I don't know. I've just realized if you fight the wind here, you're going to lose. So you just have to accept it. Put your head down and it'll pass eventually.
You pick up your eggs from the grass and you just shove them in your mouth. Like that weird scene in Osmosis Jones where the egg drops in the monkey cage and you got to eat it anyway.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
Yeah.
God, what a disturbing image. Okay, everyone, go to YouTube and look up the weird egg scene from Osmosis Jones while we hear the outro music play. And go.
This has been The Breakfast Dish.